Hello, everyone. This is Naïm, wedding celebrant in Paris, and welcome to the French Wedding Show, where it is my job to introduce to you some of the best wedding vendors in Paris and in France. Today on the show, I welcome Anne-Laure, a bespoke wedding planner planning your big day all around France with a special touch to focus on you and your guests for a unique experience. This is the Et Voila effect, and here's Anne-Laure on the Paris Wedding Show. Anne-Laure, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for, as always, taking the time to be with me. I would be not that kind on my own. Even if I'm good at monologues, I'm not that good at dialogues on my own. So thank you for taking the time. You're in London today.
Yes, I am. I'm based in London, mostly.
The magic of internet. You're taking the time to be with me today to talk about Et Voila Wedding, your business, wedding planning business. Let's start with you, a little bit about you. What is your background, and tell us a bit more about yourself.
I'm French. I grew up in the north of France. I studied in Paris. Then I went to work. During my studies, I did like a long internship, and I lived in Marseille for a while. Then I moved to Bordeaux. Then I graduated my business school. I went for a year traveling. I did a sailing trip for a year. And when I came back with my boyfriend, who's now my husband, we didn't know where to settle in France. So we decided to settle in the UK. And so that's how I'm in London now.
Okay, nice.
And I wanted to work in events. So when we arrived in London, I looked for a job in events. And the first job I got here was for an events agency who needed help with dealing with French suppliers. So they were planning lots of big events in the south of France. And, they were planning this, fancy stuff in very nice hotels. And they realized that, at that time, that was about 15 years ago, even in some of the best venues, people didn't really speak good English, or not good enough for them. And so they hired
French
me.
tradition.
Yeah. It's gotten really so much better now. But then they hired me for that. They hired me so that I could communicate between, them, communicate their wishes to the vendors and the venues. And that's basically what gave me the idea for Et Voila Wedings. And that's how.
That was a good resume. Can I just go back for a second to your sailing trip? If that sounds crazy, why did you choose to do a sailing trip after graduating?
Well, why not? Because I was given the opportunity to take a sabbatical, a gap year, and I could choose what I wanted to do, and I love boats. I love living on boats. Mm-hmm. And my husband is a big sailor. Okay. He's always sailed, and so it came as quite natural to go on a boat. And then, we were young and we wanted to have a nice challenge. So, crossing the Atlantic felt like, a nice thing to do.
Yeah, very nice. A lot of French people like to sail. What did you learn during this trip?
So I don't sail. Sorry. So that's why I said I love living on boats. Mm-hmm. So I learned sailing, but so my husband does the sailing and I help, and I do all the other stuff on the boat.
Okay, and you've been there for like how long?
A year.
A year, wow. And what did you learn during this trip?
That's a good question. I don't know. I learned that I loved it. I suppose I learned to travel, really. And obviously when you sail, you travel in a very different way as you would, taking a plane or any other mean of traveling. Things are very slow. And there's lots of logistics as well about living on a boat. It's complicated. You're in a small space. You've got to handle everything in a short amount of time, because when you're sailing you can't do much. You're only sailing, you can't go do your shopping when you're sailing. You can't go and do your laundry when you're sailing. You're only sailing. So, and then when you arrive, then you've got to be organized of, okay, we've got this many days in this location. where is everything? Where do I do my laundry? Where do I do my shopping? Where do I do? And then, usually you've got a few things like, you've got repairs to do and things like that.
Yeah.
So
Planning and organization.
It's a lot of planning and organization, actually. Yes.
And
then a few fights,
of course,
having big wins and being taken in a storm and things like that. That's
wow, life savings opportunities. So after that, you started to work and dealing with French suppliers. I suppose it was full of colors, and you've dealt with a lot of crazy stuff. But yeah, where did you stay? When did you decide to take the step and just move and start to do your own planning?
I always knew that I wanted to have a business of my own at some point. And so it was very natural to me. I knew as well that when I started planning events, that my goal was to have my own events agency. And so when I started working, I worked in the sense that I wanted to learn what I needed to know so that I could do it on my own when time came. So yeah.
And what was your first year? It was 2011, if I'm not wrong. Did I do my homework good?
Yeah, my first season. So I started 2011. My first season was 2012 then.
2012. And how did it go?
It was good. It was, I actually had really, I still know some of the couples from 2012 from my first season.
Oh, yeah.
I had some really nice couples, and it was a bit of, how can I answer that question? I had, so when I started, I had lots of couples in London, and that was actually the aim. I'm based in London, and lots of couples here are a bit multicultural, coming from different countries, and so they don't necessarily get married in the UK. France is sometimes a good middle ground between families, living in different areas. So I did weddings in the Côte d'Azur. I did weddings in the Southwest. I had some really lovely couples, and obviously, when you start, you've got more time because you've got less clients. And I was very dedicated, and I was very lucky to have really lovely clients for my first season. So no, it was what I expected it would be, to be honest. So yeah,
When I was looking at your website before our interview, I've seen a beautiful website, obviously. But what I really liked about it, I'm a bit of a crazy organized person. I'm very super right with details, and I really like the way that you structured your website and the way that you say the process. So tell us about your process and what do you do exactly when you onboard your clients?
Yeah, thanks for the comment. I'm a very organized person, and I like things to be very clear. So that's great that it's translating on the website.
It does, yeah.
The process. So that being said, the process is always tailored. So when I onboard a couple, I always try and spend a good amount of time having a chat with them and trying to get into their heads and trying to understand what do they want, what do they like. Obviously, we have a style, and I think couples who come to us, they've seen our website, they've seen our Instagram. They probably like what they've seen there, and they probably want something that is similar or in that style. So I think our style is quite, French, elegant, but not over the top. And so I think the couples tend to come to us for this kind of wedding and this kind of event. There's also a lot, I try to translate a lot on my Instagram and on my website about the fact that for us, it's really about the guest experience. To me, there's no, you can have a beautiful wedding and the couple would be happy. They'll have all the flowers and, everything that they saw and they've seen on Instagram and is going to be there. But if the guests are not having a nice time, if it's not well organized, if there's not a nice flow, if they're not attended to, then it's going to feel in a way. And then I really feel deeply that the couple would feel it and wouldn't feel as happy about their day. And, similarly, if you've got an event where sometimes we can't have it all, we can't have everything that we wanted, you can't have everything that you've seen on Instagram.
Yeah.
But then, you're on the day and the guests are super happy. Everything's going well. They've got, they're fed, they've got everything to drink. They've got, they've been attended to. Everything is going smoothly and seamlessly, and it feels, and the couples are, so much happier. If the guests are happy, the couples are happy. So that's my main concern, to be honest. So anyway, so the process is a lot about understanding my couple and understanding their crowd. Who are they inviting? Is it more family, older kind of guest, or is it like a very, lots of friends, where there be lots of kids? And we try to tailor the day to, according to what the couple wants and who their crowd is. And then it's like, I always say planning a wedding is like building a cake, even though I'm not a cake designer at all, but I imagine that's the thing is, we start with the base tier of the cake, all the main things, the venues and the main suppliers. And then as we go, we build up, the higher layers until the tiny, tiny one at the top that is, all the later details.
And how do you get into their heads? Because it's everybody wants to do this. Like when you have a client meeting, and you want to know what they want, but obviously you cannot say, okay, so tell me what do you want? So how do you get into their heads? I like this expression.
I don't know. I ask a lot of questions, and I'm really interested. Like I ask a lot of questions, but I'm really interested as well to understand, who they are, what they do, why they do what they do. Why do they get married in France? What do they love about France? Have they visited the area before? What do they do in their spare time? Where do they go on holiday? And why? Why is a big question. Like, you get one question and then why?
I really like this approach to ask a lot about them and get into their heads to tailor the best experience. Also, I never heard this approach to make the guest very happy in order to make the final client happy, because like most of the time the shortcut is, oh, we want to make the clients happy, but there's a lot to be said here that no one is probably thinking about. I really like this approach. You already had this approach from the start, or you developed it during your career?
No, I think I had it from the start. I mean, it's funny because I'm kind of writing a post right now on Instagram about it, but I realized that I've always been a group person. Like I love people getting together. I love people coming together. It really fills me with emotions, seeing people coming together for whatever reason.
Okay.
And I really care about, people feeling happy and good and well, and, and so that seems quite natural to me that, wedding is not just about the couple, and obviously the couple is important and they have to be happy, but, there's 100 other persons in the wedding, and that's the guest.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And once again, I really like this approach. So most of the time, people know where they want to go. Do they have a precise idea of where in France they want to go, or you already give them some of your venues? Because I see you have Paris, Provence, Southwest, even Corsica. I rarely see it, so it's a beautiful place.
So most of the time, couples know the region, the area they would like to get married into, but sometimes it can be like the south of France. So south of France can be a vague notion. So sometimes, depending on, again, what they're after, what vibe they are after, how many guests they have, and what they want to be able to do. So usually when, for destination weddings, people don't come just for the wedding day, or even not just for the 2 days or 3 days. They come, if they come from the US, for example, people would most likely travel for at least 5 days or even a week. So it's important to have things to do around and see. And so again, depending on the crowd, some crowds would be better in the Nice area, and then they want to go to the beach and have, hire boats and things like that. And some crowds are more like, oh, we want to be relaxed and go to markets, and so that would be more Provence. So depending on what they want to do and what they want to see, then I would direct them into one direction or the other. And yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. And how do you source all your suppliers? You get to know them, or you already know them, or along the way you get to know people? How do you proceed?
It's a bit of everything. I mean, I've been on the market for a while, so there are vendors that I've known forever. That started, about the same time as me. So there are vendors that I've known for a long time, and we've kind of grown together or grown, in parallel. So that's quite nice. Obviously, there's lots of vendors that were there when I started that are not there anymore, and so it's an ever continuing a process of, being aware of who is new to the market, and kind of sourcing the good people around. So I don't know. I just, it's word of mouth. Sometimes, it's, looking on Instagram and saying, oh, I like the work of that person, and then getting in touch on Instagram and, exchanging a few messages and keeping that person in mind for any future event that we might have that could be suitable. And then some people come to us as well. We receive quite a few emails of, vendors who say, hey, I've seen, a bit like you said, I've seen your website. I like what you do. It would be great if we could work together. So that's a bit of everything.
Websites are always a big display, and on Instagram actually, and websites are always a very big display of what you do, and especially for wedding planners and wedding designers, to give an impression of everything. You've been published in Style Me Pretty, Brides UK, Magnolia Rouge. You're in the game for a long time, and congratulations. That's beautiful image that you display. You also do elopements, intimate weddings, and larger wedding. This is the way that you are categorizing your services, if I'm not wrong. Do you do something else?
No. We only do start to finish. So yeah.
And when you do elopements, you do them in the whole country of France, or do you specialize in Paris most of the time, or?
Well, we could do them anywhere, but I have to say most of the elopements are in Paris.
Yeah.
It's a really good spot for elopements.
Very
and
famous,
I do love a Paris elopement. So
yeah, elopements in Paris is a very, very famous spot. And to finish, I would like to ask you about the name of your company, Et Voila. How did you came up with the name?
Oh my God. That's a very silly story.
You have to tell it now.
I don't know if I can. Okay. So I had another name for the company, and it was a French name, and it was very hard to say in English. I really loved it, but I just realized that it wasn't working. And I was with a friend, and we were thinking, okay, so I want the name to be French, but it has to be something that the British would understand, or, the English speakers would understand and would be able to say. And I don't know, I must have looked at Finding Nemo just, in the last few days or weeks, I don't know. And I remember, do you know Michel?
I do.
But he does the bubbles, I don't know. And then, he cleans Nemo. And then when he's finished, he says, Et voilà.
Et voilà.
And I was like, well, if it's in Finding Nemo, people obviously understand it, and it just sums up. You just do the job, et voilà. And so
absolutely, I really like it, and it's true actually. You don't, not only in Finding Nemo, the whole English speaking crowd will get it. It's a very snappy thing. I like it. So once again, thank you so much for taking the time to be with me today. Do you have final words for the audience? Somebody is listening. If you want to say something.
No, thank you so much for listening, and thank you for having me. It was a pleasure having this chat with you. And if anyone would like to get in touch, please don't hesitate to DM me on Instagram or send me an email.
I will put every information about Et Voila Weddings on the show notes, the links, and everything about Anne-Laure and her beautiful services. Anne-Laure, thank you so much again for taking the time to be here today.
Merci.
Thank you so much for listening to the French Wedding Show. If you want to know more about our guest today, you can go to the show notes and find all the relevant links. Also, have a look at my website, theparisiancelebrant.com, also in the show notes. If you want to start to plan your wedding ceremony or elopement in Paris or anywhere in France. I look forward to hear your ideas. Thank you again so much for listening, and see you soon for another episode.